Think of it like a high-stakes game of digital hide-and-seek. You've got criminals on one side trying to scrub every last trace of what they've done, and on the other, you've got investigators hunting for the ghosts in the machine. It is a constant battle of wits, and we're about to show you exactly how the game is played.
So let me ask you a question we've all wondered about. You drag a file to the recycle bin, you hit empty, and poof, it's gone, right? Or is it? Well, the answer to that simple question is surprisingly complex, and it's the key to this entire field of digital investigation. It's really where our whole story begins.
So this thing we're up against? It's called anti-forensics. The easiest way to think about it is like a criminal's playbook. And it's not just about hitting the delete key, oh no. It's a whole suite of techniques designed to hide, to destroy, or even to fake digital evidence, all with one goal: throwing investigators completely off the trail.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Imagine we've just arrived at a digital crime scene. Our suspect has been very, very busy. They think they've wiped his slate clean. Our job? To prove them wrong and to find the evidence they tried so desperately to erase.
You know, the first lesson any digital detective learns is that the cleverest criminals don't always destroy evidence. No, sometimes they just hide it, and they hide it right under our noses, in places you would absolutely never think to look. One of the classic tricks in the book is something called steganography. It's basically the digital version of invisible ink. You can take a totally normal-looking picture, a song, a video file, and embed secret data. We're talking contact lists, illicit plans, you name it, right inside of it. To the naked eye, it just looks like a cat photo. But investigators have a way to reveal that invisible ink. It's a process called steganalysis. Now, if they're lucky enough to have the original file, it's easy. They can just compare the two and see the differences. But here's the really clever part. Even without the original, they can use these powerful statistical tools. These tools don't actually read the hidden message. They just scan the file's data for things that look out of place. Tiny digital fingerprints and patterns that just don't feel natural.
Okay, back to our suspect's computer, we find this picture file. We check the properties. Yep, it's 24 kilobytes. Looks perfectly normal, doesn't it? But our suspect has been using a different and honestly a much, much cleverer trick. This is where the absolute craftiness of something called alternate data streams, or ADS, comes in. It's a little-known feature that's actually built right into Windows' own file system. It lets you piggyback an entire secret file onto another, legitimate one. Think of it like a hidden pocket sewn into a regular file. You could hide a massive document, for example, inside that tiny picture file. And here is the real kicker. After hiding that secret file inside, we check the picture's properties again, and it is still 24 kilobytes. The file size hasn't changed one bit. And this, of course, makes it incredibly difficult to spot unless you're using specialized tools that know to look inside those hidden pockets.
All right, so hiding data is one strategy. But what happens when the criminal gets desperate and actually tries to destroy the evidence? This is the part we all picture, right? That frantic deleting of files just moments before the authorities kick down the door?
You know, most of us think deleting a file gets rid of it. But there is a huge difference in how you delete it. A normal delete, that just moves it to the recycle bin. Super easy to recover. Shift delete is a little more serious. That bypasses the bin entirely. But even then, the story is not over. Not by a long shot.
See, even when you empty the recycle bin, Windows leaves behind a breadcrumb trail. For every single file you delete, it keeps two hidden files of its own. There's an R file, which holds the actual data from the file, and an SI file. Now this SI file, that's the real goldmine. It stores the original file name, its location, and the exact time it was deleted.
So what's really going on when a file is deleted? Well, the operating system doesn't actually wipe the data. That would take way too long. Instead, it just removes the reference to it. It's like taking the card out of a library's card catalog. The system then marks that physical space on the drive as available. The book is still on the shelf, just waiting to be found, as long as another book hasn't been put in its place yet.
And that is exactly where a technique called file carving comes in. It is the digital equivalent of painstakingly reassembling a shredded document. Even if that file reference, that library card, is gone, investigators can scan the raw, unallocated data on the drive. They're looking for unique digital signatures of specific file types, like the little bit of code that says, "I'm a JPEG file," and they can rebuild the file piece by piece right from there.
But this cat and mouse game, it's always evolving. And the huge challenge today is the solid-state drive, or SSD. Most SSDs have a feature called trim,
And to maintain their incredible speed, Trim proactively goes and cleans up the space from deleted files, effectively overriding the data for good. On an SSD with Trim enabled, when a file is deleted, it often really truly is gone forever.
All right, so far, we've seen criminals hide data and we've seen them try to delete it. But there is a third, and maybe even more frustrating category. And that's evidence that is right there in plain sight, but it's either locked away behind an unbreakable password, or its history has been deliberately faked to tell a completely different story.
Encryption is, for all intents and purposes, the unbreakable safe of the digital world. Trying to guess a strong password for a fully encrypted hard drive is practically impossible. But what if? What if the criminal left a copy of the key lying around? Well, here is the incredibly clever workaround that investigators use. See, when your computer is running, the encryption keys have to be stored in its active memory, the RAM. And if that computer is put into hibernation, a perfect snapshot of that memory gets saved to the hard drive. Investigators can grab that memory dump or that hibernation file and use special tools to pull the keys right out. The safe is still locked, but they just found the key under the doormat. Another really common trick is to lie about when things happened. Attackers use tools to change a file's timestamp, making it look like it was last opened a year ago, not 5 minutes ago. But here's the thing. The file system, it essentially keeps two sets of books. There's a timestamp that's pretty easy for users and tools to modify, but there's also a deeper, system-level timestamp that's much, much harder to fake. When an investigator sees that those two timestamps don't match up, bam, they know they're looking at a lie.
So with all of these sophisticated techniques, we're talking hiding, wiping, encrypting, and lying. How do investigators ever actually win? How do they possibly maintain an edge in this constant battle of wits?
Well, the answer isn't just one single trick. It's a combination of strategy and discipline. It's about continuous training to stay one step ahead of the latest criminal methods. It's using multiple advanced tools to cross-check and validate every single finding. It's performing live forensics, analyzing a computer while it's still running to snatch evidence like those encryption keys before they vanish. And above all else, it's a deep fundamental knowledge of how these digital systems really work.
And this leaves us with one final and pretty sobering thought. This whole thing is a relentless arms race. For every new forensic technique, a new anti-forensic counter is developed. The technology never stops changing. So the real question is, in this endless cycle of innovation, who will ultimately have the upper hand? Those who are trying to hide the truth, or those who are dedicated to finding it?